Good evening, or morning, or whatever time of the day it happens to be. Hi, everybody. It's your old pal, LegoMyGregO here, and we are back in business right here on LegoMyGregO TV, and I think it's time today to talk about something super important to me. We're going to talk about D&D. Like a lot of teenagers, I really bought into the whole D&D is for nerds thing, because that's what teenagers think. You know, I never once in all of my years did anything to prove that I was a nerd. Nothing. There's nothing I did or said. There is not evidence all across the internet of things that I did and said that made me a nerd. Never happened. I'm not a nerd. I'm a real manly man. I was the MVP of my middle school football team. I'm a man. But luckily, once I had matured a little bit and just smidgens and smidgens of maturity and got to my college years, as short-lived as they were, I was introduced formally to Dungeons and Dragons, and I have never looked back. Because it's not just about role-playing a fantasy environment. For me, as a writer, D&D is an amazing challenge and a great way to kind of flex that like creative muscle that you've got like flexing. Like, this is what your brain does when it's flexing brain muscles. It just squishes. And over the years, I've accumulated a very interesting rogues gallery of characters from D&D, Pathfinder, and just other RPGs I've played. And I wanted to make a video just talking about a few of those characters. Because some of them I'm really proud of, and some of them were absolute train wrecks that need to be talked about. So to start off, I want to talk about my very first D&D character. His name is Vagabond Jones. He's a Dragonborn. It looks really cool, doesn't he? And I created him to act as a Mr. Miyagi type character, to kind of be like a mentor to the party that we were playing with in that campaign. Just like Mr. Miyagi, Vagabond has a very, let's say, unpleasant backstory. He started life as Malwyn Jones, the adopted child of two elven parents. And early in his life, the kingdom that he lived in, Mono-Cesaru, it went to war with the rest of the continent. It was a whole big shebang. Everyone was revolting against Mono-Cesaru. Vagabond, like a good soldier, took up arms and went to war, but the war went very, very, very badly. In the final days, Malwyn, along with several other soldiers, abandoned their posts completely to go home and try to find their families and get them to safety before the end. Malwyn arrived at home, found his home destroyed completely, his wife and daughter both murdered, and he just walked away from everything, effectively taking up the military brand of a vagabond. And for quite a long time, he was just Vagabond. He wandered away, tried to kill himself. Eventually, he went on a journey of self-discovery, learning a lot of new skills and getting a whole new take on life and his role in it. Kind of becoming a monk, now that I'm looking at it. Mr. Miyagi was a monk, wasn't he? Because that really bad, like, fourth Karate Kid movie you don't talk about? That one with the Hilary Swank. That's her name. Hilary Swank. And there were monks in that, and they went bowling. By the time that first campaign started, Vagabond's backstory was 600 years behind him. At this point, he had found clarity in his life, he was moving forward, he was acting as a guide, helping people get across and find their way through the totally originally named continent of Hoenn. I like Vagabond a lot, not only because he's my first character, and I just like kind of his there is balance mentality, because that's his entire deal, is there's balance, there's good, there's evil, but we all have to be balanced and right in the middle and find our inner peace. He is the inner voice of reason in me, and I have used him several times over the years in other campaigns. I've used him in short stories, and he's a character that I think I will keep going back to because I love him. He is such a cool guy, chill. He's like S tier for my characters, and I love him to death. Going the opposite direction from the S tier is my second character, and this one's in here because it was a learning lesson. It was a learning lesson. This character is called the Fulcrum. The Fulcrum is very much chaotic evil, because I want it to be dark and edgy for some reason, even though the entire design for the Fulcrum is literally ripped straight out of Doctor Who. It was completely inspired by the withered version of the Master from classic Doctor Who, because I'm original as fuck. Like, call me a Mary Sue, I'm not good at embracing forcing darkness. If I'm gonna do a dark character, which we'll get to that one when I did a dark character kind of right, but if I'm gonna do it, it has to be a progression. I can't just jump into it. I have a serious problem with that, and the Fulcrum was a great example of it, because I wanted to be a badass. I wanted to be feared and respected. But no one respected me, because what am I thinking here? How do I put this delicately? Because I am the physical embodiment of social anxiety, even in like a role-playing scenario, I never want to upset anyone. I was on edge in like the most wishy-washy situations. I'm like, I'm gonna ruin it all. This isn't going. Fulcrum was a character that, on a character level, he demanded respect, and when he did not get it, he completely flipped his lid. I played this trait one time well, and that was the one campaign. I was one week I played him in, and then I never went back to that group again because I was too embarrassed or whatever, just pissed off. But the party was we had a decision. We were in a ruined village. We had to go off and do something else somewhere else. We had to go on our little adventure, and I'm like, we need to stop and look for supplies for our journey, whatever. And no one except for Happy wanted to go with me. And so what I did was I took Happy and we found a field of corn. And I'm like, okay, that's food. That's something we can use for fuel. Let's start taking corn. And then Happy burned the field of corn down. Whoosh, all into flames. So what I did next is I stayed a little bit behind him as he returned to the party, who was in combat and getting their asses kicked. And I waited until Happy's health was next to nothing. And I ran him through with a trident, murdering his character, and then I never went back. I think I played that part pretty well. I think that is absolutely something that character would have done. But up to that point, I had done nothing like that. So it's like, it was just a complete misstep. The fact of the matter remains, if you don't play to your strengths, you're going to get into some situations like the Fulcrum, and you're going to ruin the fun for yourself and everyone around you. The next character I want to talk about, and really the next two characters, because this next character informs the one that comes after it. The next character I played in a Pathfinder campaign, and he is a detective. He is a pink gnome, and his name is Finbar Bubbles. Finbar Bubbles, here to solve the crime, get to the bottom of the case, and that campaign unfortunately did not last long, and the sessions we had were kind of derailed constantly by the revolving door of people we had coming in and out of the campaign. But I salvaged him for the next character on the roster, and it was not for D&D, it was not for Pathfinder, it was not for like a fantasy RPG. This was for the Fallout RPG. So when I was asked to be a part of the Fallout RPG, I pulled a character from a Fallout just fan fiction story that I wrote years and years ago. The character was originally called the Intrepid Reporter. The whole setup was that he came from the Chicago wasteland. What was the vault name? Do I have that written down here? Vault 110 in Chicago. He was an aspiring journalist who set out to find a big scoop for the vault dwellers. And along his travels, he got super radiated, turned into a super mutant, but like kept all of his faculties. So he's still him. He's just a super mutant. Big old super mutant everyone's afraid of, and he's just looking for a hot scoop. His name? Kent Clarkson, because I am original as fuck. In my brain, Kent Clarkson is in the S tier column. So I didn't mention the best part of this whole thing. This like Intrepid Reporter, like mutant thing. So he leaves a vault, right? He has a Pip-Boy, right? Okay, so when he's not allowed back into the vault, he finds a way to majigger the Pip-Boy so that it broadcasts audio out to whatever like radio towers or whatever receiving device might be listening. And it's a ranged thing, obviously, but he finds a way to get to work and essentially becomes the Wasteland's podcaster. Which gets even better when in the rubble on his way to the Mojave Desert, he finds a Casio keyboard that functions. So he's playing his little Casio keyboard sounds, giving Wasteland news reports, like, what's the radiation level? What's the radiation level today here, Marv? Oh, there's no Marv here, it's just me, Kent Clarkson. Do. It gets better. Oh my god, it gets better. So they get a storefront, right? Like they get a storefront in this town in the Mojave Desert. So what does Kent Clarkson do with a storefront? He records an album. He starts selling CDs. Oh, he was so much fun to play. I loved him so much. He was the literal embodiment of the gentle giant. Everyone feared him, but he just wanted to know their story. He wanted to get the big scoop. That's all Kent Clarkson wants in the whole world. And by God, he's gonna get it. Song Yelnan is the next character that I want to talk about. Now, remember when I was talking about Fulcrum and I said the thing about if I'm going to play a dark character, I need to be there to like build that story progression? Yeah, this is that one. So I wanted to make a steampunk-esque character. I picked a sky elf. Then somehow I became kind of obsessed with the idea of this character trying to find a way to like automate his entire body, essentially becoming a Cyberman in the process. Song is a bit of a sociopath, kind of disconnected from like the entire embodiment of human life. He really is just obsessed with this idea of like automating and making things better and studying body parts to figure out exactly how they work. So Song's backstory is he had two wings. He lost one as a child in an accident and became obsessed with this idea of I can build another one. So over the course of his young life, he studied a lot of engineering. He got really good with tinkering and making things. And so he did it. He built a second wing. He built a brand new wing that functions perfectly, connects to a spine, it does all the things a wing is supposed to do, and eventually leaves the Sky Elf Sanctuary on a quest to further his knowledge on his obsessive journey with automating things. Throughout the adventure, things kind of just kept ramping up, which was due partially in no part to the fact that most of the party I was working with were idiots. And Song's mental state began to slip and crack quite a bit. This was made exponentially worse when the party became trapped in the Fey realm, where we're stuck in a magic circle. One of us is outside the circle, and that guy, and I learned this later, all he had to do was walk into the circle, grab onto someone, and pull them out of the circle, and we'd have been fine. Isaac knocks on a magic fucking tree, and we are transported to a realm of insanity. That land messed up Song quite a bit. They kept getting into scrapes that they could not get out of easily. People just left the party, which people dropping out of the campaign, but in-game just decided they went nuts and went, I'm gonna go do my own thing, whatever. People almost dying, Song trying to keep what little he has left together. And this entire event in the Fey realm causes Song to become a more chaotic character, hell-bent on getting him and his friends out of there, no matter what the cost. And also, yeah, upgrading himself, but anyway. He got a new hand at one point. I remember that. That happened. Song in my brain would have eventually become a villainous character who would have had to have been dealt with because he's nuts. He doesn't have regard for human life outside of the, like, 3 people he cares about. Everyone else is just spare parts. And that's just great to me. Next up is Boris the Bear. Boris the Bear is technically cheating because I have never gotten to use him in a campaign. I have planned on using him in 3 different campaigns, but none of them have worked out for one reason or another. He is a giant talking bear with a very heavy European accent who's on a quest for revenge to find and kill the blonde woman who murdered his parents. She came into his house, drank his porridge, broke his chair, slept in bed, murdered the entire family. It's a typical day in bear life. One day I will get to use Boris and he will be awesome. He's a normal bear. He's just a normal bear, by the way. Him and his parents were just normal bears. A wizard found him as a bear cub and enchanted him so he could talk and think and move like a human. That's his whole setup there. That's as deep as it gets for Boris the Bear. And that is it. That is my list of D&D characters that I've had that I think are interesting enough to talk about, for better or for worse. Do you guys have fun D&D characters you want to talk about, or lame ones, or just ones you didn't play? Discussion topics. Insert comment discussion topic here as I desperately seek audience feedback and approval and communication because I'm so lonely. Grim locks herself in her office all day and just does candles. And I get done Ubering and I start writing, but I can't write forever. And I'm like, I'm so lonely, I am so lonely, I'll never forget. So talk to me in the comments, please. I need human interaction of some kind, please and thank you. Gazoom tight hallelujah. So that'll do it for this video, guys. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up in the button system clicky bar thing down there below. Leave a comment. Subscribe to LegoMyGregO TV if you haven't already. You don't have to, but it's super nice. And you get to stay up to date with all my videos coming out. I got this. As always, I want you guys to know from the bottom of my heart, until next time, I've been LegoMyGregO. You have been awesome, and I mean that, except for you, Isaac. Fuck you for hitting that tree. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!